Hey, welcome to the Sharpe Way show, guys. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your evening this evening. Thank you so much. It's Monday. Yes, it is Monday, but there is something I must change real fast. If you don't mind, watch. Boom. That's what it should be. Sorry about that, guys. Swapping it around. That's what it should look like. Again, thank you so much for joining me this evening, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, here I am. Ask me anything, but I want to start the way that I often start these AMAs with something that's bugging me. And there is something that's bugging me. It's a personal thing. If you watch my Tuesday shows often, when I do my last weekend today, which I've often done, last weekend tonight, or today, sorry. When I do that, I often use Fareed Zakaria's show as one of the pieces that I pick, right? Fareed Zakaria's show. Fareed Zakaria last week in his show, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, right? The Sunday before was almost anti-government, right? Most of the time, if you watch Fareed's show on Sundays, which I do almost every Sunday, he will often start with, here's why government's bad, 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 bad. But then it'll sound kind of libertarian-ish. And then, bam, turns hard left. So, of course, give more government. That's how he usually works. But not last week. Not this last Sunday, the Sunday before. He actually ended in a way that just said, government's not working. That's it. And I thought, oh, my God, maybe there's a change in this man. Maybe he's all of a sudden realizing that this won't work. Maybe. Yeah, I was wrong. That was a hope that was unnecessary. That was not going to happen. This weekend, last Sunday, he doubled down. He was all like, you know what? Remember last week how I said government may not be good? No. Government not only good, government great. And you know what the best kind of government is? Biden's government. Cannot be better than that. I'm not joking. He literally went down that road from a nothing's working, oh my God, this is a disaster. He turned. I guess he went back to his people and they pointed at him and went, shame. Shame. How dare you be a heretic? Go back and repent. And he went, I'm so sorry. How could I not repent from loving government? And he went back. So let me show you a piece of this and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. He really just said, he's basically just, he took everything, any gains that he might have made in a libertarian, going towards libertarian, he just lost them. They're gone. Let me grab a couple pieces. You'll see what I'm talking about here.
The Biden presidency is still in its early days, but it's not too soon to point to its most impressive accomplishments so far.
See, we have to, it's new. Biden's new, but let's be impressed by it. That's not what he was saying a week ago. A week ago, he was like, this is all failing, how bad it is. Now he's like, let's look up what's good about it.
One that will have major implications for years to come.
Look at this.
The COVID vaccination program has been transformed. The federal government has now established or expanded over 450 vaccination centers, and the country is carrying out 2 million vaccinations a day, more than double the rate when President Biden was inaugurated.
Look at that. So that means that federal worked. No, not really. No.
The president says he has secured enough supply to vaccinate the entire adult population in the next 3 months, well ahead of every major country.
Look at that. We're rocking it, except for the UK.
The United States has administered around 85 million doses of the vaccine, compared to about 40 million in the European Union and 55 million in China.
But hold on. China has a much more aggressive, government, much more centralized control government. And the EU is kind of broken up even worse. I don't get it.
Over 15% of Americans have received at least one dose.
There we go.
Which is about 5 times the rate in China.
Okay.
In short, Biden is demonstrating to Americans and to the world that the U.S. government can once again work.
And that's what we wanted. What we really wanted as Americans is just have our government work. We were waiting for it because we can't handle it on our own at all. So great. Now Biden saved us. You know what? I was wondering if Biden was going to save us. Thank you, Fareed. Biden has saved us all. Yeah, it's all good.
The Trump administration does deserve credit for Operation Warp Speed.
What? The Trump administration deserves credit? Okay. You're going to give some credit. I like that. Keep going.
The program that helped fund the vaccines.
Yeah.
And the private sector deserves credit for the miraculous speed and effectiveness with which they developed the vaccine.
So the private sector deserves something, and Trump. Okay, but without Biden, that, it would have all collapsed. All right.
Vaccines. But for the most part, Trump left the rollout to the states.
Mm-hmm.
In early 2020, with COVID having turned into a massive national crisis,
Yeah.
Ron Klain, now Biden's chief of staff, said the Trump administration was pursuing an Articles of Confederation response.
Okay.
Trump did this for two reasons. First, it was clear the pandemic was going to create big problems, and he didn't want to bear responsibility for them.
I don't know how you would know that,
The sentiment in the
but
White
okay.
House was, let the governors own the lockdowns, we will own the recovery. Second, Republicans have for years
Okay, he didn't want lockdowns. Okay, fine.
denigrated the federal government, arguing that it was incompetent and dysfunctional, that Washington was corrupt, and that the private sector could handle everything better.
Yes, and yes.
Trump's initial solution to the pandemic was to line up a bunch of private companies and announce that they would quickly set up websites and testing centers and cover the population. Little of that actually happened.
Yes, but that didn't happen, not because of Trump. And guys, I didn't vote for Trump. I threw my vote away for Joe Jorgensen, as the saying goes. But that part wasn't his fault. The reason why it didn't work well in some states is because state governments got in the way. I'm not making this up. That's what actually happened. States like West Virginia that didn't let the state government get in the way, that let the federal government give it directly to the private sector, had some of the best numbers ever, initially and ongoing. So that's not what's happening.
Joe Biden came into office intent on reversing Trump's approach.
Because he is our
He
savior.
owned the crisis, releasing a 200-page national strategy that...
And that's what you need, right? When people are dying, the thing you need more than anything is a 200-page national strategy. That's the thing. And I bet everybody read it. And that's why I bet almost no one's read this. There's probably like 8 people who read this. And the 8 people who read it, 6 wrote it.
Outlined, for example, exactly how the government would use its powers and resources to ramp up vaccinations. That included ordering millions more vaccines, using the Defense Production Act to ensure that additional production could happen fast.
So you ordered more vaccines. That was like on the first page of the 200. And you said Defense Production Act, forcing them to do it. Like they wouldn't have done it without you. But it's fine. I guess that's part of your 200 pages.
Enlisting the Armed Forces, National Guard, FEMA, and other agencies
which you do normally,
support vaccination sites, and shipping vaccines directly to pharmacies.
Yes, directly to pharmacies. That was the actual plan. The problem is the states got involved. So now Biden's doing the plan that literally I spoke about in November, directly to pharmacies, which is what West Virginia did, which is how it worked. To be forward, the only thing Biden did better than Trump was tell the states to stop. I'll give him that.
Another network of vaccination centers across the country.
Yeah, because what happened was, you see it right there in the picture? That's a private company. That's probably a Walgreens or a CVS or one of those two. The private company thing. That is the reason why people got vaccinated. Yes.
The result? A massive ramp up of the supply, production, and administration of the vaccines.
Look at that.
Government is hard.
Yes.
American government is harder still.
Yes.
It's a political system designed to prevent tyranny, not facilitate speedy action.
And you act like that's a bad thing? Freed's like, it's designed to not have tyranny. Psh, boy, that gets in the way. If we just could have some tyranny, then maybe things could work better. He's like mad at this.
So power is checked, divided, and shared. Making it all work takes energy, ingenuity, and above all, a belief in government.
I'm not sure that's true.
Biden clearly learned from his experience running the stimulus program as Barack Obama's vice president.
No, he didn't.
Ron Klain, who coordinated the response to Ebola in 2014 and 15, is impressively focused on execution as White House chief of staff.
There we go.
Biden's COVID-19 coordinator, Jeffrey Zients, is a talented executive who's excelled in the private and public sectors.
So the private guys came in and fixed this. Why do we hate private so much?
He may be best remembered for fixing the Obamacare website. A senior White House official told me, You have to work every day at all the details,
Oh,
grind the stuff out,
gotcha.
persuade, cajole, and force everyone to get on the same page.
Right.
The federal government has amazing people working within it. FEMA, for example, has some real...
You could literally pull out federal government and put any large organization. Is there any CEO who goes, you know, you have to not work every day. You just got to scam and you got to ignore the details and not grind anything out at all. And you don't ever want to persuade or control or get people on the same page. That's dumb. Does anybody say that? This is something that any CEO would say, but he's acting like it's special for the federal government. No, anyone who runs a large organization has to do this. It's not special for the U.S. government.
Miracle workers, but they have to be led and managed.
Oh.
It can be done. The answer is not that a consulting group can do this better. For people like us who believe in government, task number one is to make government work.
Yes, at any cost. You are correct. That's exactly correct. The task is to make government work at any cost. However, if this was a private company, it would be to make the government work. I mean, to make the company work, but not at any cost. There's a difference.
The contrast with Trump is easy to draw because Trump didn't really view his job as diligently administering the federal bureaucracy. For him, the presidency was a reality television show, and politics was a series of symbolic acts.
So easy day.
But there is a broader view of the federal government that grew out of the Vietnam War, Watergate, and some of the excesses of the Great Society programs, one that Ronald Reagan gave voice to when he said in his inaugural address,
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Correct. Yes. And please tell me why he's wrong, Fried.
Joe Biden can show us that Reagan was wrong.
No, he can't.
It was the American government, after all, that put a man on the moon.
Okay, but the assumption is that the private sector couldn't have done that. The reason why the American government put the man on the moon is because we physically kidnapped the German scientists after World War II and gave them, and basically didn't put them, didn't have them go to the gallows if they built our rocket program. Yeah, private companies could have just hired them. That also would have worked.
And helped create the internet.
Yeah, helped create it, but didn't create it. I mean, private companies could have done that too.
And in today's world, there are crucial challenges that only government, well-led and administered, can solve.
Yes, I agree with you, but not because they're the only ones who can. They're the only ones that can solve because you're a monopoly and you won't let anybody else solve them. So it's like saying only I can be a father to my daughter. Yeah, because I'm a monopoly. I'm the father to my daughter. That's how that works. It's like saying, only government can do it because you won't let anybody else.
Go to cnn.com/
This is what drives me crazy about this piece. Because if you go last week, he said almost exactly the opposite. I am so disappointed that this is the way he went. I really was hoping. And you know what? Shame on me for thinking that he would change. But I guess I just want to see change so much that when I see any tweak, I hope. When I watch Bill Maher start to become a bit more libertarian, I'm like, okay, maybe he's coming back. Maybe he is. Maybe I'm too optimistic. Let me grab a couple of comments before I go on with some of these things. Rose says, hey, Larry, hey, how are you? What do you think of an Amash Gabbard 2024 presidential run? I think it'd be great. I'm totally happy with it. Right now, when you look at the field, particularly third party, there aren't many people who are out there who are popular enough, who could raise the money, who could help us out, as a third party to do much. But Amash Gabbard, of course, could. Now, Gabbard is not a libertarian. She's a Democrat. So if she wants to become a libertarian and become a libertarian not in 2024, maybe become a libertarian, I don't know, now or next year, so she can begin to grow with our party, see who we are, see if she wants to stay. The problem that we have in our party is people usually join and then go, oh, now I've joined, I now want to rule the world. And that fails all the time. I'm glad that Amash is with us, an official libertarian, and staying with us for these next 4 years. He's going to see how that's going to work for him. Maybe he'll run for something, maybe he won't. but at least he'll be part of us. He'll understand who we are. And in the coming years, he'll be closer to us than he's ever been. And that'll be a great thing. And I hope he runs in 2024. Awesome. Gabbard has she's got a longer road to come to us. It's a longer road. So, I'd like her to join the party very soon. Like, I don't know, tomorrow, now. Are you listening? You could join now. So join soon so she can stay with us for a while and kind of understand who we really are. And the reality of it is people who come to our party, if they're serious, they stay for a year or two, and then they either go, you know what, this really isn't for me, and they leave. Bill Weld, an example, stayed for a couple years, left. That's a common thing, right? Happens all the time. Or they come and they stay. So I would like Gabbard to come very soon. Stay with us for a couple years, because one of two things always happens. Either they leave or they become more like us. That's how it works. For all of you who've joined the movement, at one point you joined the movement, you weren't as close to us as you could have been. Now you're in a year later, you either walked away and said, I'm not dealing with these guys anymore. They're not who I want to be, or you got closer to us. So I'm all in. I'd love an Amash Gabbard ticket. Amash is already with us. I think Gabbard has to join us relatively soon for her to be libertarian enough, assuming that she would stay. But that's the glory of joining our party now. If she joins now, she'll self-select. 2-3 years from now, she'll either be like, this isn't really me, and she'll leave. Fine. Good. I'm glad you came. I hope you bring press. I hope some of your people you bring with us stay. To be amazing. Please come. Please come. If it is for you, by the time 2024 comes, she'll be one of us. That's fine. So the sooner they join, the better. That's what I would like. The sooner they join, the better. Absolutely. Sharpe for governor. 2 P's on that, Sharpe. That's awesome. I love it. I appreciate that, Tom. Decentralization is actually the answer. And that's one of the things I'll talk about a little bit later on. It really is an issue. Peterson Sharpe. For those of you who don't know, that was a possibility in 2016. Some of you may not know this. Some of the inside baseball on Peterson Sharpe. At the end, in 2016, when I tried to become Gary Johnson's VP, I lost by 31 votes. After Peterson lost the presidential, many of his people simply left the room. There were over 100 less votes for VP than there were for president, because his supporters left. They walked away. They were like, we're tired, we're out. I asked him to support me. He didn't want to. He didn't tell his people to. He supported Alicia Dern. If his people had supported me and come back into that room, and I could add even 50 of those 100 votes, I would have been the VP. According to what people who were close to Gary Johnson said, there's a chance Gary Johnson might have said, oh, I don't get Bill Weld, I'm out. If he would have quit, then either Peterson would have been the nominee, because they probably would have redone the whole thing, or they would have made me the nominee, and I'd have picked Peterson as my VP if I'd have gone, or he would have been the president, and I would have been his VP. So there was a possibility. If some of you Peterson supporters have come to me in 2016, I hope you have learned your lesson. You're forgiven. Come next time. Life is good. All good. So, AMA, are you going to be part of the Pot of Gold Lodge? I don't know what that is. So I guess the answer would be no. You could send me a link and I'll figure it out, and my team will figure it out whether I should be on it or not. I appreciate the question. Everyone says government's bad, but when our form of government was set up, wasn't it supposed to be a representation of the people and not a separate entity? Yes, Jimmy, you're totally correct. Right? The issue is government is supposed to be a representation of us. It's not that anymore. And one of the reasons is, and there are many reasons for this, but one of them is one congressman now at the federal level represents about 750,000 people. A senator in California, as an example, represents about 18 million people, 19 million people. So how can they even know who's in their districts anymore, right? The country has become so large that the federal government is completely disconnected. And it's just getting worse. They already don't feel connected. When you then add a two-party system with gerrymandering and creating systems to where I just have to, all I have to do is win my primary and I'm the nominee, and I'm the candidate, then why bother? Win your primary and you win the election. Literally, my governor literally said that they're going to pick a new mayor in June in New York City. He didn't say November. He said June because June is Democratic primary. And he knows that whoever wins Democratic primary is probably going to be the mayor of New York City. That's how bad it is. When you create that environment, of course they're separate. And now they've literally got military, they got what, 10,000, 20,000 troops in DC now, guarding the entire area. They've militarized DC, big gates, you can't get in there anymore. More and more separate from us. Government is a separate entity. And you're right, Jimmy, it was not supposed to be. I mean, there's old stories. Obviously, it's a different world, but 200 years ago, Thomas Jefferson answered the front door, right? Like you could knock on the door of the White House and Thomas Jefferson like, hey, what's going on? Like he could answer the front door. That's completely not the case anymore. So anyway, see if I can keep going. All right. I hope Larry runs again. Thank you. I will announce in the summer if I do. I appreciate that. Yes. See if I can keep going here. Tear down the wall, the U.S. Capitol. Yes, I agree. Look, there's an idea. If you have to be that afraid of your population, you're doing something wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't, care about your health or your life or your security. Of course you should. But when you've got to build walls all over the place, oh my God. I mean, what are you doing wrong? This is the thing that I bring up constantly. If you hate the left or hate the right, think about how they think about you. The same, right? If you hate the left probably hates you. You hate the right probably hates you. Wow, what are we doing wrong? And then what are our leaders doing wrong to facilitate that? So Shelly's listening while cooking. Thank you, Shelly. I appreciate that. Jay says, sorry, I think he means Zakaria, is a true believer. He's mentally incompetent, as are all libtards. I disagree, Jay. I think he's a true believer, yes. I don't think he's incompetent at all. If you listen to what he's actually talking about, he gives actual data and information, real data and information. And very often he does diagnose the problem very well. Like he'll explain why there's a problem. That he's very good. If you watch his stuff, which is why I started early on in many of his conversations, he'll start to explain why government's failing. And he'll be right. Yep. Problem. His issue is how he comes up with a solution. What you hear me say often is the way things are now, the left, as a general, Democrats, progressives, have a lot of ideas to fix things. The right is so afraid of them that they're spending all their time stopping them from trying to fix things. And what winds up happening is the left becomes the party of bad ideas and the right becomes the party of no ideas. That's what winds up happening now, because the left is saying every answer is more money, more programs, more taxes, more. And then the right goes, I don't want that. What are you doing? Stop. So the right has no ideas and the left has bad ideas. And that's where we are right now. It's a bad spot. But I don't think he's incompetent. I think he's a true believer. And there's a difference. When a person actually investigates the facts, it's easy to see that Trump bears very little blame. The Democrats created this hysteria, and those scumbags are going to own it. Who will own it will be however it's portrayed. The sad part is actual ownership of this, Jay, is not going to be based upon reality. It's going to be based upon how the American people, how this gets spun to the American people. And at the moment, there's a chunk of people, maybe a third, who are going to believe whatever Sean Hannity says, and a third who are going to believe whatever Don Lemon says, right? And those 2/3 are probably done for no matter what. It's the third in the middle that's going to be swayed one way or the other. And they're either going to go, this Trump is a bad guy. Or, no, wow, Trump didn't screw up at all. I think that it's the middle ground that will decide whether in the long run Trump gets the blame or not for this. I think that's real. I don't think it's reality. Sadly, I think it's all going to be based upon how it's spun and what perception that middle ground gets. Where do they go? So, all right. Florida didn't read it, need it, or use it, and they're just fine. Yes, you're right. And so's West Virginia. I brought this up. West Virginia. I mean, they're doing amazing. Totally. Yes, totally true. Absolutely. So who's paying for these means of vaccinations? You know who. You and me, Jimmy, taxpayers. We're paying for it. But actually not paying for it yet. We will pay for it. We're just borrowing and printing money. We're going to pay for it big time. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, yeah, Pete says, put aside some money from your stimulus for your grandkids because they're going to pay for it. It's true. Your grandkids are going to pay for all this stuff eventually at one point. And, of course, Pete follows it up with the national debt. It's almost 28. I'm telling you, it'll be 30. It'll be 30 by the summer. 30 by the summer. Absolutely. Yes. Jericho says you need energy and ingenuity. Literally just describe the private sector. Exactly. You don't get this at a centralized level. Correct. You don't. You're exactly right. That's my point. What he's talking about is the private sector actually does. That's really the issue. That's the entire point. So, does the income tax Japanese people pay in Japan go toward paying the interest of the predatory loans from the Bank of England to the Bank of Japan? I don't know. That is a good question. I don't know. The Bank of Japan is very different than our Fed culturally. I mean, they're both centralized. They're both centralized banks. But the Bank of Japan, the Japanese culture is far more open to the Bank of Japan being super aggressive, being involved in private businesses, and the Japanese people, as a general rule, don't seem to mind. Like, they're totally okay with the Bank of Japan buying private companies up, doing these things like there's no tomorrow. They have no problem doing that. Americans are a little bit more worried, and we've been doing it. Our Fed has been doing it recently, but it's been a slow shift into us being more like the Bank of Japan. So my guess would be yes, but I don't know that. If if one of my people could do me a favor and research that, I'd appreciate that. If you would, one of my teammates would do, I'd appreciate that. I actually don't know, but my guess would be yes. And only because the Bank of Japan is notoriously very much very aggressive and puts its fingers in all types of private businesses in Japan. As a general rule, the Japanese people don't seem to mind. They seem to be fine with having a centralized bank that does a lot. They tend to be okay with it. Americans used to not be okay with it. We're getting more and more. Since the 2008 crash, Americans are much more open to, yeah, let the Fed do whatever it wants, which I think is a terrible idea because the Japanese have stagnation. And I think we're on our way to doing the same thing. So thank you for the question. I wish I had a better answer. So Joe Biden can prove Reagan wrong. Okay, I'm done. I like that, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Yes. So wait, I thought private companies are going to space. They are. Literally, was it last 2 months ago? There was another one that went up there. Yes, private companies are going to space now. And that was my point. Without question, he's right when he says only government can do it if you only let government do it, right? If you allow others to do it, they can too. Yes, 100%. Absolutely. So, says Ed. He said, Biden can show us Reagan was wrong. Please help me continue to push through this with your deep sarcasm, Larry. It's the only way I can watch his nonsense sometimes. Look, the reason why I show this, some of you who are watching are more progressive. So this is more what you see because you're more progressive. More progressives watch CNN compared to watching Fox. That's true. More progressives watch Fox too, but percentage-wise, more watch CNN than watch Fox. And if you're more conservative, you probably watch more Fox than CNN. One of the reasons why I tend to bring both here or there on is because I want you to see how the other side thinks and where their heads are, right? And you laugh at this. I get it. But there are a whole lot of Americans who eat this up and go, yeah, see that? Biden's teaching us stuff. And they're not being sarcastic. Most of my friends here in New York City are Democrats, and most of them like Biden. They're not like jumping down about Biden, be like, yeah, he's fine. He's better than Trump. That's what most of my Democratic friends think. So I know it drives you crazy, Ed, but I hope you'll at least, I hope it'll make it easier for you to talk to people who are progressive because you'll know this is what they're watching. This is what they're thinking. And I don't want to fight the left. I don't want to fight the right. I don't want to fight authoritarians. None of that. I want to bring them to my side. And that means a lot of conversations. Why you see the people I put on the show. I want more and more conversations. If you just want to watch, libertarian stuff being spewed at you, there's 14,000 podcasts that'll just yell taxation and stuff at you for an hour. And you can get that. I hope you don't go only to those. You should support those too. And I go on those. Those are important podcasts also. But this one's not made for that. This one's made for that mix. This one's made for that mix. Yes. Did you happen to watch the Meghan Markle Prince Harry interview with Oprah? I didn't, and I'm starting to think I should. I tend to not care much about royal families. It's not my thing, unless the royal family actually has some power, and most don't. So I'm not that concerned. But you know what? Maybe I should. It was a cultural thing, and I'm seeing so many people talk about it as a cultural piece. So maybe for pop culture purposes, I probably should watch it. So Andrew, thank you. I'm going to watch it now. Just for cultural reasons, I will watch it. Yes. So Fareed, working from home because of a capitalist. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Pete says, if a $1,400 stimulus check changed your life, just imagine what a job would do. Yes. Yeah. Imagine a job compared to a check. Don't get me wrong. I like checks. I'm sure most of you like checks. I think most of you do. I would like a check for $1,400. I prefer to have a job to where I'm getting checks every week or every 2 weeks, every month. That would be better. Yes. I'm with you. Think about that. I love that. 100%. So Roro says, people want change, but change comes for all of us, whether we like it or not, and not always for the best. Yes. And there's also a saying, you know, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I agree with that saying. We want to start doing things, right? We want to start doing things to make things better. Angelo says, Larry, you and Justin Amash. If Justin Amash is running, he wants me as VP, I'm in. Happy to do that. But the reality of it is, if Amash is our nominee, and at the moment he's the front runner, but it's 4 years, 3 years. It's 3 years from now. There are plenty of people who might jump on board before that. You don't know what's going to happen. It is early, but I think at the moment right now, he's the front runner. If he wants me on, I'm on, but he has to have the person that's going to work best for him. I want him to have impact. If that means me on board, I'm in. If that doesn't mean me on board, I'm still in, and whatever he needs, whoever the person, I shouldn't just say he, whoever is our nominee, I want impact. We have not had it. We didn't get it all last year, and we got far too little of it in 2016. We need impact this year without question. Jay said, Gabriels anti-gun. That's automatic non-starter. It's a valid point, Jay, which is why I said I want her to join now. Like, I want her to join our party far before she runs for office, if she does. And the reason is, if she stays in our party, I think she'll change in a lot of ways, or she'll leave. And if she leaves, self-selected, no worries, right? But if she comes, she'll bring people and press with her. Some of those people will stay with us, whether she leaves or not. I hope she stays. I hope she adjusts her views. I hope that happens. If it doesn't happen, she'll go back to being a Democrat. Some of her people will stay. It's still a win. I do not want to push anybody out in that regard. I want them all to come to us. And if she stays for a year or two, here's what I know. For sure, she will adjust her views on guns, on Medicare for all, or she won't stay. It's a win either way, Jay. That or she stays, right? She'll stay and she'll change, or she'll leave. Either one. I hope she'll stay. The reality of it is, what I believe most politicians who would even imagine coming to us, they actually don't think that they need to be anti-gun. They want to be pro-safety, and they think that the only way of doing that is anti-gun. Why would I say that? Because a lot of people think, well, we have problems, so we got to have anti-gun laws. But then when I talk to them, I say, well, here's a way of being safe without having to attack the Second Amendment. In fact, you could actually enhance the Second Amendment and be even safer. When we have that conversation, the number of people who were anti-gun who go, maybe you're right. I mean, it's over 50%, Jay. I'm not joking. People who are watching have probably seen me do this. Like, I'll do this in my events. People who'll be anti-gun, they'll be, oh, I love libertarians, but guns. They'll be like that. And I'll sit down and have a conversation with them. And within 10 minutes, they'll start going, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, isn't it they're actually anti-gun? They've just been told their whole life that to be pro-safety means to be anti-gun. If you can show them another way, you'd be surprised how many of them will actually shift. But some won't. And if they won't, then they'll leave. So I appreciate where you're coming from now. So we need you to share the party. Why? Oh, my God. Why do you want to punish me, Angelo? Why do you want to punish me? I thought you liked me. Oh, my God. I'm calling. Amash is running for Michigan governor. That'd be awesome. I hope he does. I hope he does. That'd be amazing. I hope he does. I would love for him to run and make some real impact, shake some trees, win the thing, be amazing. If he doesn't win, at least get it even more popular and raise even more money. That would be great. I love that. So, Larry, could you share your thoughts on HR 1? I'm afraid of HR 1. And you might say, why? I'm afraid because it is not because of what it does, to be forward with you. Not because of what it does, but more because of how it divides. I knew something like this was going to happen, but I still had my hand out for hope that it would be something that both sides could talk about and actually fix real issues. There are issues with our elections. I do not believe, and people get mad at me when I say it, I do not believe there was enough problems that affect the election. I do believe that Trump actually lost the election. Some people disagree with me. Okay, I'm open to an investigation because I know there were screwed up things in our election. That I'm 100% sure. There were screwed up things in our election. So why wouldn't we investigate, find out what was really wrong, repair those things? And I believe in my heart, if we did an investigation, it would prove there wasn't enough of the issues to affect the election. But maybe I'm wrong. And maybe the people who think Trump won, maybe they're right. And it's, we've missed something huge. I don't think so, but maybe. What does the investigation hurt? I would have rather had the investigation with both sides involved. Some people would have thought no matter what. Some people are going to believe that Trump won the election no matter what's done. But again, this goes back to my chunk. A chunk of the people are going to believe Trump lost no matter what. And a chunk of the people are going to believe Trump won no matter what. But a bunch in the middle who might be like, is this real or not? When you go down the investigation, that chunk of people, whichever way it is going to go, oh, so that's the truth. Okay, good. We're good. So my worry is that it is one, divisive more than anything. But the second piece here, what HR 1 does is it makes the Democrats right with everything in the election. And which means it is a pro-Democratic Party bill by default. Why would I want any bill that supports one party? I wouldn't want if it was reversed. I wouldn't want the Republicans to have their own bill either, to be forward with you. I wouldn't want either. I think it's not, I'm not happy. I hope that it doesn't pass, and I hope that it somehow gets shot down. I just hope that doesn't go through. I think you have to have a better bill. I get that they want to rush stuff through. I get it. If I was, to be forward, if I were the Democrats, I'd be doing this too. If I was a Democrat, I'd be doing it also. It makes total sense. Push it through, rush it through now. People are upset. Push it through. COVID over here. This HR 1's going to do COVID. Yeah, look over at COVID. We're going to push HR 1 through. It makes sense. I get it. I don't like it. I think it's a bad idea. But to be forward, I get who they are, right? I can't expect a dog not to bark. Dogs bark. That's what they do. So yes. Paul, I wish the Libertarian Party appreciated your plans, ideas more. It's true. I wish they did too. They're free. I do them every week. I put them on my website. I put them in video format. I put them in playlists for them to take it. They don't. They're more worried about, I don't know what they're worried about. I don't know what they're worried about. But yeah, they were about other stuff, not this. So it should never come as a surprise when government rewards incompetence and punish those who defy its mandates. Every single time. Every single time. Yes. Are lobbyists necessary? Necessary? No. Constitutional? Yeah, they are. However, and there's a huge, massive however there. Lobbyists should not be anywhere near necessary as they are. So I got to have some caveats on this. Are lobbyists constitutional? Yes, they are basically freedom of speech with freedom of association. I don't have a problem creating lobbyists. I don't. There are a couple issues, though, that break it now with our current system. Number one, corporations are people, and that is a horrible idea, a horrible concept. I can't believe that that judges actually said that. What a terrible, terrible, dumb thing to even create in any way, shape, or form. I know legally corporations are people now. Corporations are not people. They're literally ones and zeros in someone's computer. That's not a person. If a corporation is an actual person, if it is, well, where was the corporation created? Where was it born? In America, probably Delaware. Doesn't get a chance to vote. Not just that, you can't audit a company then. Why? Doesn't it have a Fifth Amendment right? It's a person. It's an American citizen born in America. So it doesn't get, it can't incriminate itself. You can't audit that damn thing. You can't just tell it to give. No, you can't do that. How can you do that? It's going to incriminate itself. It should have a right to illegal search and seizure. Shouldn't the company have that right too? It's a human being, right? That's number one, right? Individuals should be able to donate what they feel appropriate. Organizations should not be able to donate because they're organizations. They're not people. Individuals can. So that's step one. Step two, tax code. One of the biggest reasons why lobbyists exist, there are many, but one of the biggest reasons is to get tax breaks. Taxes here, taxes there, taxes the other place, add taxes here, add taxes there. Taxes. You simplify your tax code to where it's basically not 70,000 pages, but 7 pages. I'm not exaggerating. 7 pages, just simplify it. Now, I know libertarian goes, why did taxes anywhere? I wish we can go there. We're going towards more taxes. I would like us to at least just keep what we got and simplify first. Let's turn the ship around. Simplify the tax code. If you actually had a tax code that was grossly simplified, like as an example, how much money you make, X percentage, flat tax, pay it. The amount of lobbyists that will go away overnight, at least a third, gone overnight, just gone. There's no reason for them to exist. There's no way to get around the loopholes in the tax code anymore. So that's number two. Number three, subsidies. You have all these subsidies. What is the lobbyist doing? Getting subsidies. Like there's no tomorrow. Tons of subsidies. And the subsidies. Another 1/3 of your lobbyists go away. Like that. So end the subsidies, simplify your tax code. Corporations aren't people. Lobbyists are fine. The problem is those three things combined, disaster, disaster, disaster. I hope I answered your question, but they're not necessary. But I wouldn't want to pass a law against them. And if you try, it's not going to work, right? We're going to make lobbyists illegal or whatever. Because you know what always works? Prohibition. Works every time. It works every time except always. It never works, ever. So if you decide to ban lobbyists, which would be a law that somebody would make, lobbyists are bad, let's make them illegal. What would happen? Every grassroots lobbying organization would be shut down. You do what you always do. You punish the weak. All prohibition always does is punish the weak. The wealthy always find their way around it. There won't be lobbyist groups. There'll be civil action committees or whatever they'll call themselves, and they'll get around it because they have tons of lawyers and tons of accountants to get around it. They will still have influence upon the powers that be. Now, the grassroots people will have nothing. That's how that works. Remember something. Whenever you create prohibition, you will always punish the weak, and the people who will always be punished the most in every single case of prohibition, every single time, is poor women. Yes, I said it. Every single time when there's prohibition, any way, shape, or form, the people who will always punish the most are poor women. Those are the most. Everyone who is not of the elite is punished, but the most are always poor women. Guaranteed, that's always the case. So if you get rid of lobbyists, I can guarantee you in some way, shape, or form, who'll be punished? Poor women. Yes. Catherine says, how do you figure that a third party will ever succeed? Why not revamp the Republican Party? I've heard this a million times. It hasn't worked, right? And the reason why I say it is look at the one time it has worked, meaning the one time that a third party has come to play. It was Republican Party. They didn't revamp the Whigs. They outgunned the Whigs, and the Whigs went away, right? So we have to create a party that has the right ideas, that has savvy people, that has good ideas, good policies, and good candidates. We have a very, small talent pool right now. The way we succeed is only one way, becoming more popular. That's it. And if you want me to become more popular, guess what? Like, comment, share. Do that right now. Like and comment and share. It does matter. If you like what I'm doing, if it matters to you, let everybody know. Like, comment, share, and also help out my sponsor. There is a link in our description. There's a link to the pandemic survey. I'm talking about pandemic. Yeah, we are. Click on that survey. What do you think? What do you think about mask mandates? What do you think about lockdowns? What do you think about vaccine mandates? What do you think about those things? Let them know. Click on that. Take it. It's about 3 to 5 minutes. Take the survey and share it, and let your friends know you've taken it so that they can take it too. This is at theadvocates.org. They are my sponsor. It's free. It's totally free. It makes them happy, makes me happy. Please take that. If you've got the cash, you're getting some Biden bucks coming in now. You had the Trump bucks last year, your Biden bucks this year. If you want to help me out, head over to patreon.com/sharpeway. Throw me $10 a month, $25 a month, whatever you can, so I can keep doing this. Get more popular is our answer, and that's what I'm trying to do. That is the entire piece. Yes. So let me grab one more piece. This is a piece that also bothered me a bit. I talked about this in the past, and many of you talked about this before. This is the idea on Michael Smerconich's show. He talks about education being answered. He talks about the idea of education in things like civics and history and government and why it's not happening. Listen what he says. He brings in a guy who actually agrees with him.
After decades of division and polarization, the democratic and civic fabric of our country is at a breaking point.
This is true.
So how do we move forward, learn from our mistakes, and inspire the next generation to be better informed and engaged? A Wall Street Journal op-ed penned by 6 U.S. education secretaries titled "America Needs History and Civics Education to Promote Unity."
Now, I want to make sure you understand that. These are education secretaries, people who were or are secretaries of education. They wrote this thing. America needs history and civics education. Where you been? Why didn't you do it? This is like going, God, I'm the governor of New York, and New York needs some new stuff. You're the governor.
Argues that education may be a worthy place to start. That essay was drawing attention to the release of this report, which offers extensive guidance and ambitious goals to improve and reimagine the teachings of history and civics.
Now, why would we not push history and civics? Why wouldn't we do that? Now, they have a bunch of reasons. I'm going to tell you the reasons. Federal funding. That's the reason. How do you get federal funding? Through standardized testing. And what do they do in standardized testing? ESL, English and math. So they push ESL. In certain situations, they have special STEM tests. You guys know the STEM is the sciences, right? The sciences test, science and math tests, right? Some of those, the STEM tests. But without that, it is English, math, sometimes STEM. Where's the history test where you get money? There is none. Where's the civics test where you get money? There is none. But if you got rid of federal funds, decentralize your education, do you think the local people in those areas would push civics, would push history? Yes. What people are always asking for it. Yes. They push civics, history, shop, home ec, all the things that local people actually want their kids to learn. They would push that. They would. Would every place? No. Some place would say, no, all I care about is math and science or whatever they care about. Fine. Fine.
Here to discuss further is one of the co-authors of that op-ed, former Education Secretary Arne Duncan. He's a managing partner at Emerson Collective and author of the book, How Schools Work.
There we go. I don't know how schools work. They don't, but it's fine. That's like a 2-page book. They don't.
Secretary, I should make clear, it's not as if this report was whipped up in the last 2 months in response to January 6th. This has been a 2-year endeavor, but made all the more relevant, wouldn't you say, by the recent attempted insurrection.
So how did the insurrection mean education's better? I'm not sure. So people riot on January 6th. We need education. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And obviously, no one could have predicted January 6th a couple years ago.
Yeah, you could have. I predicted it literally last year. I said literally, this is what will happen. I said it more than once as I crossed the state. This was going to happen. So, yeah, you kind of could have.
But I think the fears of what all the disinformation and misinformation around the election and then the insurrection of January 6th makes what we're trying to say and what we're talking about, yes, that much more important and relevant today.
Okay, that's why.
So has all the emphasis on standardized tests related to STEM education come at the expense of history and civics?
Yes.
I think it's a little more complicated than that.
It's complicated because I'm a federal government guy and I want to make sure I keep giving you money and having control. It's not complicated. No. The answer to your question, Mr. Smerconich, is yes. Yes.
I think because our history is messy and there's conflict and there's issues, I think sometimes we shy away from those conversations. And I want to help prepare young people for the tremendous diversity of our country, for the inherent conflicts and tensions in our democracy. That's the nature of a thriving and vibrant democracy.
So I want to prepare them for the fighting in our democracy. Or you could teach them to think and pick a side here or there, fight back and forth and learn. And by the time they're 18, they can kind of have their own ideas, concepts like they have now.
And so I think it's that fear of addressing or having those tough conversations. And for me, this is not.
That's a valid point. People are afraid of tough conversations, but why? Why would a teacher worry about having a tough conversation? Because they'll be fired if they don't do it perfectly. If they fail the PC police test, they literally will be fired or removed or embarrassed. Yeah, that's the reason. It isn't because people don't want to have the conversations. They do. But the problem, if anyone's offended, if anyone's angry, one striking you out rules, right? Zero tolerance policies is what ends this. I have these conversations on this show all the time, and I piss some of you off. I know I do, but I hope you at least hear me and know we can talk about whatever it is here, and I'm still going to want you to listen to me. I'm still going to want you to be part of my world, and I'm still going to you guys see me. I take people's questions who are insulting me because we have to have those conversations, and the way we do that is by having those conversations.
Not about studying dates and names and facts and places. We can Google all of that.
Correct.
It's really equipping our young people, our future leaders,
yep.
With the skills to handle that complexity, to talk about it, to understand it.
He's right. This part I got to give him. It's correct. The dates and whatever, you can Google those. I agree. Absolutely. That's not the end of the world. But how do you get someone to have that conversation without having that conversation? For those who don't know, my day job went before His Majesty King Andrew Cuomo II, all hail the king, before my governor deemed me non-essential, I did a lot of consulting. And part of the things I would do often is have tough conversations with executive teams or people who were hiring or firing, all those types of things. It was a thing I did often. How did I get good at having tough conversations? Magic? No, by having lots of tough conversations. And eventually get good at it. You must train people to be able to have tough conversations.
We want a reflective patriotism, not a blind patriotism.
Okay, I like that.
Reflective. I want to read a paragraph from the report that jumped out at me, the Educating for American Democracy report. And it said this, Mr. Secretary, central to the success of STEM has been the ability of experts in STEM fields to achieve national consensus on standards and need.
Who says STEM has been successful? I'm not even sure that's true. If STEM is so successful, why are we still importing literally millions of people from other countries to pick up STEM jobs if STEM is so successful? I don't think that's true at all. I think they're passing some tests, which are nice, but the tests themselves are useless. Did I say tests were useless? Standardized tests were yes! Standardized tests are useless. They're not helpful. They don't get people success. They don't mean anything. They're just ways of deciding whether I'm going to give you more money or not. If STEM is so useful and working so much, why do we have unemployment problems and still getting people from other countries to do STEM jobs? Maybe I've missed something. Maybe I've missed something. And if I have, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at data and I'm seeing not so successful.
In the subjects of history and civics, by contrast, national polarization, including about the nature of our past and the meaning of our institutions, has created obstacles to investment. Do you think we...
Yes, obstacles to investment. And there's the problem. Why do we have to invest so much in them? Number one, it's always about money. But two, once we have to invest, why is there an obstacle in polarization? Well, because the left says A and the right says B, now we fight and no one gets funding. Goes back to federal funding.
Can ever reach consensus on what we should be teaching before we undertake that task?
Well, I think this report was a huge step in the right direction. As you said, 2 years of work, 300 scholars from across the political.
It was good because now you have more people to buy your book. I think that's a good thing. And I'm not against you buying your book, brother. I hope you make a lot of money in your book. I'm going to write a book. Everybody writes a book. Write a book, make a lot of money. But please don't say that that is a giant step. It's not. Nothing's changed.
Spectrum, and they did come together with some pretty good consensus. And shame on us if we don't. And I'll just speak personally.
Tell me.
I thought our democracy could never be moved. Could never.
Why would you? You're a history guy. This guy said, I thought our democracy could never be moved. This is an education secretary, a history guy. According to him, a history and civics guy. The biggest wars we've had have been against failed democracies. Germany, Nazi Germany, was a democracy, a failed democracy. Imperial Japan was a democracy, a failed democracy. Our Civil War, 2 democracies. I don't know what you're talking. How can you imagine that? The world's full of failed democracies, full of them. It's embarrassing you would even think that.
Be challenged, and the fragility of our democracy hit me over the head in a way that I never thought would be possible.
When?
And so, if we don't better equip,
because of January 6th. That is what. That's the end. Before that, you were like, democracies can never be stopped. But January 6th, a couple hundred people came into the Capitol. Now it's over. Is that what you thought?
Young people, not just to be the protectors of democracy and the defenders of democracy, but the creators of democracy. Every generation has to help create and strengthen our democracy. If we don't equip them because somehow we're unable as adults to come together and find some common ground, then we do our democracy a great disservice. Okay. And what these scholars did is they took us, I think, a huge step in the right direction.
Total garbage. I'm sorry, I can't even watch this. He's full of crap. Anyway, my point being here, I've been saying this forever. He's right in that we do need history and civics, but it's not about funding. The reverse is true. End the funding, and you will see local people pick up these pieces on their own. But Larry, it won't be, the way the federal government decides history should be taught. Like, that's a good thing now? That's a good thing now? No, I'm really, it's fine. Let it go local. It's fine. And it'll be bad things and good things, and we'll figure things out. Centralized control. Let me give you a quick list, on how well centralized control, when it's won. Yeah, finished. There's none. It doesn't work. It fails constantly. This will fail also. So, all right. Angela says, we need sound leadership. The Sharpe Way with Larry Sharpe. I see you as that person in any form. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that. I am trying. Keith, do you think Cuomo will get impeached and taken out of power? I think there is virtually zero chance of that. I do not think Cuomo, my governor, His Majesty King Andrew Cuomo II, all hail the king, I do not think Cuomo will be impeached at all. I think there is almost zero chance of that. Is there a chance that he will resign? There is a chance. It is a slim chance, but there's a chance. If enough people keep the pressure up, I think he has a chance at resigning. Or if Letitia James's independent, who's our AG, if her independent investigation is really horrible, then maybe he might resign. It's possible. There's a chance of resignation. I think, my opinion, zero chance of him being impeached. He's already said straight up, I'm not stepping down. He just said it. I don't care. I'm not stepping down. A lot of New Yorkers still support him. They do. A lot of New Yorkers still support him, no matter what he does. They just support him. They love him. And the Democrats do a very good job of something. And if you're a Democrat, you know what I mean when I say this. When things get tough, Democrats to this day will still bring up Trump. And bringing up Trump makes a lot of Democrats afraid. They get scared. They go, oh, yeah, Trump might come back and still get me in some way, shape, or form. And if Trump's going to come get me, he's going to jump from my bed and grab my kids or whatever Trump does at night when he steals your kids, whatever Trump does. You believe that, you think I need someone like Cuomo to protect me from Trump. And that actually works for many Democrats. Now, it sounds silly, but I see it when you just bring up Trump. Democrats are like worried, like the Trump people are going to take over. We need people like Cuomo to fight. So it does work. Also, something else. If you remember me talking about his last press conference, all the veiled threats that he brought up many of them. And one of them, the biggest one was, again, federal money. You hear me continually talking about federal money. All the Biden bucks that are coming to New York, I think it's what, 12 or 13 billion dollars, somewhere in that area. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's 12 billion. $12 billion coming to New York State. Who's going to hand those out? Cuomo is. So now you're some local state senator, you're some state assembly person, and all of a sudden now he decides where that money goes. Maybe you don't want to be so mad at Cuomo right now because you need those Biden bucks in your local district. And he knows that. That's why he said that. That's why he's waiting over time. He's hoping over time he gives the Biden bucks out. He can bribe enough people to shut up so there's no chance of getting impeached. And then eventually he just goes, I'm so sorry, whatever, move on. Because here's what he does know. If he survives this, if he does, no one can beat him in a primary because he runs this state with an iron fist. I call him king because he is a king of the state. He runs it with an iron fist, and no Republican can beat him in a state. It's impossible. I don't care what Republican they pull out. Cannot beat him in a state. This state's 2.5, almost 3-1, Democrat, Republican. Whoever is the Democrat nominee, it's a shoo-in unless you find an outsider. Otherwise, no Republican can win. Too many Democrats in New York State just don't like Republicans. And I know Republicans would say all the time, well, this time Republicans win in New York State. They cannot. That is a fantasy. Locally, Republicans can win. And they win often locally in New York State. But statewide, it is literally impossible. It's not going to happen. And I will bet any amount of money. You pick the amount, I'm in. Not going to happen. There's a better chance of a Martian coming down and winning the governorship than a Republican in this state in 2022. That may change in 2026. I don't know. Who knows how bad the state will move and shift. But as of now, the people who would vote against Cuomo, they're physically leaving. They're not going to be New York State residents anymore. They're not going to be here to vote in 2022. It's not going to be enough bodies. It's just not going to be here to do it. It's a fantasy. It's not going to happen. And I feel bad for the Republican Party in New York State because they're going to have to lie to Republicans again. And they will. They're going to go, this time we can take them out. They're going to lie and tell the Republicans in New York State that they could win this time, and they can't. But I'm sorry. I hope that was answer your question at least. So, all right. All righty. Let's see if I can keep going. He may be a good doctor, but as soon as he says government is the answer, and Biden's what if we lose all credibility? Yeah. Question, how soon will we libertarians know what office you'll be running for? I will decide if I run for governor in the summer. If the answer is yes, you'll know then. If the answer is no, the odds are I won't be running for anything until 2024. And that would probably only be a VP slot if whoever's the president, if I think is a presidential candidate who can make impact. If they can't make impact, I wouldn't do that either. I want to run for impact. Angelo, I don't want to run to run. I want to run to make impact. That's what I want. Really, I want to do that. Nick says, bad ideas and no ideas. I like that. I mean, I agree. Not that I like it. That's good. Yes. No. I think that's what's happened by default. I don't think I'm not sure either party meant to do that. I don't know if they meant to. I think that's kind of what happened. If you find most Republicans now are being very they're just reacting, right? They're just reacting to things, which means, no, don't do that. Stop. Vote against. And that's what's happened right now for the parties. So zero tolerance has arguably been effective in Singapore. Their policies make it not a place where I would want to live. But do you think their government was instrumental in their rise? Tough question. And the reason why I say it is Singapore is basically a bank surrounded by a city. And when you're a bank surrounded by a city, it's a little bit different, if it makes any sense. When you have, it goes back to New York. By the way, Singapore is a tiny country. It's a city-state. There are more people in New York City than there are in Singapore. So there's only about 5 million, 4 million? 4 or 5 million Singaporeans. So that's one. Second thing is, when you have so much money and or so much opportunity, having a bad situation, people tend to put up with it. So I'll give you an example of New York City. New York City is never going to be as powerful as it was. What's the reason? Because New York City's glory was you had 16 million people in the metro area. If you wanted talent, it was a mecca for talent. As I've said before, a third of New York City residents don't live in New York City or aren't born in New York City. Another third aren't born in the country, which means you have talent coming to New York City from everywhere. So if you want to hire talented people, oh my God, New York City is a mecca for that. Of every group that you could think of, right? It's here. But second, it was a mecca for finance. But third, it was also an issue where you had 60 million customers to buy your stuff, to test your things. So much was happening here. Centralized hub. So even though it was basically a communist state, the opportunity was just so high. You took everything, every problem and issue, and you just dealt with it because the opportunity was so awesome. You put up with it. Those top 3 things I mentioned are no longer valid anymore. You don't have to get customers locally anymore. They're all online. It doesn't matter where they live. You don't have to get talent locally anymore. They're all online. Doesn't matter where you live. Those two things no longer matter. Finance, leaving New York City. So those three things I mentioned, no longer cool about New York anymore. Now, New York was still going to be a cultural capital. It's still going to be a tourist center. That's still going to exist in New York City. That's never going to go away. Almost no matter what happens in our city. It could be nuked and it probably still would happen. We have a nuclear site to view. It doesn't really matter. I mean, that New York City is going to be that thing. But finance, all the people, not value anymore. So it's going to go away. And as it goes away, the city becomes less and less valuable and it begins to fail. I think Singapore is going to, and it's kind of already having that issue, right? The advantage Singapore has is they've got a lot of money. I mean, the city has a lot of money, like a lot. Like it's like as big as New York and it has almost $1 trillion. I'm not joking. It has a lot. It's a very, very, very wealthy city state. And when you're that wealthy, I'm not sure you can make it effective, right? But there's a second piece. As in any society, it does the same thing. The elites do very well. That's what zero tolerance does. The elites do very well. The not so elite don't do very well. Right? Who makes it in Singapore? The people who go to the best schools, most of the time overseas. The people who go into the government, the elites, those who make it very well in Singapore. So I'm not sure I would say effective if you're asking for happiness and people moving up and down within their social structure. If you're saying satisfied and financially just making money, maybe. I guess that would be my answer. I hope I wasn't trying to dodge that. It was a very specific question. I wanted to give you my real view on Singapore. I hope I didn't dodge that. I was trying to be clear. Was there? Let me ask the last piece. The government was instrumental in their rise? Yes. Singapore was basically a basket case given up by the British and everyone else. They thought this thing could never survive. Get rid of it. And I think it was important. Yeah, I think the government was important. Yes. Let your local Marxism know that Karl Marx invested in the stock market and was pro-gun. I think real socialists and Howie Hawkins brought this up. You know, if you're really a hardcore socialist, you are pro-gun because you believe in the population being able to revolt against, you know, the elites. So you want all the population to be armed. So I think you're right? I mean, if you're not an armchair socialist, if you're a real socialist, you've got to be all about guns. Yeah, absolutely. All right, grab a couple more if you will. Larry, would you consider running for Congress so libertarians can represent in DC? No, because I can't make any impact. I mean, what impact would I make? None. I'd be another guy there. I'd make no impact. I'd be ignored. I'd have a voting record that they would use against me and every other thing they could possibly use. They would spin it and go, Larry voted for this thing that we snuck in there and now he hates babies or something. So it would ruin me for any other run. I'd have no impact. It would mean nothing. I actually could probably do more just doing this literally. I don't think it will be, valuable. That's my view. I don't think it would be valuable. That's the reason why I probably wouldn't do it. No, I don't think so. Again, unless someone could show me I could make some type of impact, then I would consider it. Karen says Democrats are still obsessed with Trump. I agree. I agree. But to be smart, the elites are smart about it. It's not a bad. If you're part of the elite Democratic establishment, it's actually a smart move, right? It's a smart move. It keeps it. Trump is what keeps Democrats united. So if you're the average Democrat, you're kind of being screwed over because people aren't doing what you want, right? If you're an average Democrat, you probably want a $15 minimum wage. You're not getting it. You probably want all kinds of things you're not getting. But Trump, so get in line behind Biden because Trump's coming after you. It's actually a smart move, Karen. I think it really is. New York property assessments are coming out this week and have increased thousands of dollars. Yeah, but there's other reasons for that. Not just, there's reasons for that, like them not putting stuff on the market, things like that. Yes, absolutely. All right, so I can keep doing this. Lily says, I just registered as libertarian. Awesome. I voted for Obama and Trump, and both disappointed me. And I know why you did, Lily. I'm going to tell you, maybe I'm wrong, but I'll tell you why you did. Because I get where you're coming. People are surprised when people say this. Like, I voted for Bernie and then Trump, or Obama and then Trump. And they're like, why would you do that? And I think so many people did it because they believed They absolutely believed that Obama was a rebel because he looked different. He sounded different. And they wanted a rebel. And they wanted somebody who was going to change things. And he's different. He's a rebel. And then 2 years later, you were like, oh, no, that was not true at all. And then Trump came up. Trump's a rebel. Oh, my God, now I found the real rebel. And you go after the rebel again. And I think a lot of people went down that road, right? They went down that road and tried to find the outsider, the rebel. The guy who ran my media when I ran for governor of New York, I got him off the Bernie campaign. I got off the Bernie campaign. Larry, a Bernie supporter? Yeah. He thought Bernie was the rebel. And then when the Democrats got rid of Bernie, he's like, oh, that's well, okay, so they don't want a rebel. And he came to me. He thought I was the rebel. So a lot of people who are very much involved in the specifics of politics don't understand that some people just want someone to not be them. And they'll go for almost anyone who seems like a rebel. And that was me. So I'm assuming you're in the same boat. Maybe I've mischaracterized you. If I have, please let me know. She says, I voted for Obama and Trump. Have both disappointed me. I think our only choice is to get off the grid and form our own communities. The government has failed. And what I would say, Lily, is in a libertarian world, the more libertarian your state or your government is, the more you can. I say often, you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want to be and be libertarian. And people go, how could you be liberal and be libertarian? You like to have a socialist group. Do it. We'll let you. Just don't force anyone else to pay for it. Don't force anyone else to do it. Be like the Amish. Good on you. Good on you. Have a kibbutz like they have in Israel. Have a commune. All good. If that's the way you want to live and that makes you happy, please do that. That's amazing. Just don't force others to do it. Don't force others to pay for it. Life is good. You're libertarian. But you realize something. The more authoritarian the government gets, the more the minorities are punished. It doesn't matter if those minorities are Jewish, gypsies, black, Mormons, insert thing here. If you are a minority, you can get punished by an authoritarian government because you have to follow the authoritarian ways. And if you're a minority, and I mean minority in any way, not just racial, we always think about racial minorities, religious minority, insert minority, ethnic minority, the government fights you. The Armenians in Turkey, the Kurds in Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, right? You're a minority, authoritarian, crackdown. You want to have an Armenian or Kurdish community in New York State, and I'm the governor? Enjoy. Just don't force others. Go off the grid. Life's good. Leave people alone. Do what you got to do. Have a happy life. Life is good. And if anyone else starts to talk trash about you, try to hurt you in some way, that's when I come down on them. And I say, leave alone. Leave Lily alone. She wants to live in a commune. Leave her alone. She's not bugging you. Go back to your store. Leave her alone. And that's, if we had more of that, people who are strong on the Second Amendment constantly say things like, in New York, we got to have constitutional carry. I mean, that's a fantasy in New York right now. It could happen at one day, but not now. What am I trying to get people who hate guns or anti-gun to do? Number one thing, just become apathetic. Just fine, you want your gun, have your gun, leave me alone. That's what I want. If we could just go there in New York. Right now, if you take your legally owned firearm, purchased and legally owned, licensed, and you bring it to New York City, you're going to jail. I'm not joking. You're going to jail. Even if you transport that firearm in exactly the way the TSA tells you to transport it, and you follow every rule and regulation exactly how the TSA tells you, you are going to jail. That's what's happening now. I would just like them to go, oh, it's unlocked. I'm sorry, it's locked and it's unloaded. Have a nice day, sir. Have a nice day, ma'am. That's it. Just do that. Just not care. So thank you for saying that. I think people should be able to go off the grid and form their own communities in any way they like. That'd be amazing. So yes, that's how people who even come from the left can still be libertarians. People think they can't. Of course you can. All you're saying is, government, get out of my way. Let me be me. Yes, Lloyd, thank you. You should be able to be me, yes. Does Larry read his chat? Yes. Brandon. Larry does. I try to grab everyone that I can to the best of my ability, but I can't grab every one of them. And some of my team will sometimes answer the questions for me in type, so I can't always do it. So, hi, Larry. How are you, TN? I'm pretty baked, but I would be higher. Oh, okay. Yes, I'm not baked. Guys, you guys might not know this, and I go right to the same thing that I say all the time. I'm one of the squarest guys you're going to meet. I don't drink. I don't imbibe a type of drug, except for caffeine. I drink coffee. That's about it. Nothing else. But Larry, why are you pro-cannabis? Larry, why do you end the drug war? Because of what I just told Lily. You should live your life the way you want to live your life. Just don't hurt others. If you want to smoke weed every day, good on you. I think it's probably a bad idea, but I don't actually know if it's a bad idea. Feels like it's a bad idea, but so what? One, maybe I'm wrong. And even if it is a bad idea, so what? Why should you have to do what I tell you? If you care about my opinion, I'm happy to give it to you. And you can do whatever you want with it. But it's not my life. It's your life. You should live it in the way that makes you happy. And if you're wrong, you know what? Hopefully you'll change and make your own life better. And if you don't, it's you. So, all right. Karen says, kids came home with overwhelming amounts of homework every night, pretty much hours homework. Yes. I've seen that many times. I'm unhappy with that. And I've actually told some teachers they got to stop. It's just too much. I don't want my kids spending their entire life doing homework. That's, particularly in high school, mostly useless. I mean, you're learning things you'll never use again. You're learning things that you could easily Google. They're not learning how to think. They're learning how to regurgitate and pass a test. And that's not impressive at all. I don't want you to do that. They don't even teach history in public schools anymore. My daughter graduated last year. She learned about people like Gandhi, Stephen Biko, and Nelson Mandela from me. It's maddening. I agree. The amount of times that I have to talk to my daughters about history. I have two daughters, both in public school, and I am doing history lessons on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis. The history they get is often useless. Often useless. Yes, you're totally right. Yes. Cassie says, I actually like the STEM program right now. Coming from one school to another within the same school district was a drastic change. Had so much homework in 2 to 4 grade. It was ridiculous. Go to a STEM school and no homework. And they tested at the beginning and the end, and she's way above average. She's definitely learning stuff. I love that. See that? You can do it without tons of homework. Of course you can. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I love that. So let me keep going here. Lily says, I am Cuban, half Jewish, half Catholic, Lebanese, and Spanish. Wow. I'm short, so I'm a minority in many ways. I love that. I like that. Let's go. Wow. Wow. That's a lot of stuff, Lily. I like that. It's a lot of stuff. I love that. Larry, should private businesses and private schools have the ability to discriminate on race, gender, sexuality? At what point should government step in? It's a valid question and a tough one, right? And there's should versus reality. In the perfect world, none of it would matter, right? We'd all get to go to the perfect schools and it wouldn't matter, blah, blah. Of course, in a perfect world, we're not even close to that. We have cultural issues. We have real issues that are happening. We have government issues. So you really don't, you really can't walk down that road, right? It's almost impossible to do it in a way that will be fair in any way, shape, or form. So in theory, in a perfect world, we're private. In reality, it simply isn't realistic. So what you want to do is try to not have a quota system. That's number one thing. You don't want to, unless we're having in New York City. Is New York State? New York City, we're starting to have an actual quota system to where now schools have to take X percentage or Y percentage. Now, the reality of it is, if you wanted to make it to where schools would do it without a mandate or have an ability, you'd only want to do one thing. You want to say, if it's an education, if it's a private school, and it's a place where you want to educate kids, and you want them to get some form of credential from the state, like you want to be able to give them a certificate or a degree or diploma, then they have to be completely transparent. And they have to report the ethnic backgrounds of race, gender, sexuality, whatever would be important to that community. They have to promote, they have to give it to the state. The state would look at it. And you as a parent look at it and you go, wow, this school is all one thing, or whatever the case may be. Do I want to send my kid there? And some people would want to send their kid there. I would hope they wouldn't, right? So I think realistically, you probably can't, you probably can't allow them to, just because of our culture. You probably couldn't, realistically, right? Nothing's going to pass. It's not going to work. It's a non-starter. However, you could begin with just asking for transparency, and what would wind up happening is people would start doing it on their own, and the people would go to certain schools. They would eventually become a cultural price to pay for those types of things eventually, which is not there yet. Right? In the perfect world, there'd be a cultural price to pay. Right now, there probably isn't. So it's a great question. It's a tough spot. And to be forward, this type of thing is so low on my priorities, to be forward with you. It's just so low. Culture war stuff, generally for me, is very low on my priorities. It tends to just divide people more and make people more unhappy. You know, dealing with an issue like this, I'll answer the question. But if I took a hard stance on anything, it's not going to happen and make people angry. So why even walk down that road? There's roads that just don't matter, right? Oh yeah, I'm gonna stop the bake the cake argument. It's just an unnecessary argument. It's already decided. It's not going to change it. It's so low on our priorities of crap that's going on. It becomes an exercise in virtual signaling, which is, in my case, usually useless. It becomes culture war battling that just puts people on opposite sides and ensures that we can't talk to each other. So I appreciate the question, and I'll answer any question. It isn't high on my list, and culturally, I don't see us doing something like that. I don't see us granting that freedom. I say, well, Larry, I have my freedoms. Government says no, so you don't. And men with guns will stop you, and they will shut you down and lock your schools. So no, you don't. COVID has shown us that, no, you don't get to go to your business when you want. Government will lock it down. So I think that's the piece. I hope I answered your question. I don't mean to. Some of the times I feel like I'm dodging when I can't give an easy yes or no. But I want you to know I'm not dodging. I'm trying to give you an honest answer on where I stand on the issue. I hope that was clear. So, yes. All right. Brandon, my 3-point plan to fix American. Yeah, but Brandon, we know where your head is right now, but fine. No minimum wage. Introduce negative income tax, remove tariffs. You know, if you introduce negative income tax, wow, Brandon, this is better than I thought it was going to be. I was scared when I first saw it, but it's actually better than I thought. If you introduce negative income tax, you don't have to have minimum wage. You're right. And the thing about minimum wage that people should understand also is people don't actually care about minimum wage. What they actually care about is people having a living salary or enough money to survive. So if you added a negative income tax, you don't need a minimum wage. It's irrelevant. The people are going to have a living salary they can survive on a monthly basis. If you have that, you don't need minimum wage. So I agree. It's not a bad idea. And removing tariffs is an amazing idea. Let's start trade going. Brandon, well done. I was going to do it, even though I was worried, but nicely done. Nicely done. Yes. So one of the reasons why I talk about the culture war is like the idea of the Dr. Seuss books, right? People are upset about Dr. Seuss, about being banned or not being banned, whatever. The problem is now we're talking about this. And usually, you know, I don't speak for any minority. I speak for myself. But I'm going to take the place for today, for the next 30 seconds. I'm going to become the emperor of black people for 30 seconds. Okay, right now, I'm the self-proclaimed emperor of black people. We don't care about Dr. Seuss at all. Ban them, don't ban them, do ban them, ban half. It's not a ban. It's a don't do this, sell that, whatever. We don't care at all. It is so low on our priorities. I don't care what you do. Stop it. Don't even talk about it. I don't care. Don't care. Either way, this should not be news. If the people who care about Dr. Seuss decide they don't want to publish 6 books, great. Then don't publish them. Or publish them. We also don't care what's on the syrup bottle. I don't care what's on a syrup bottle. I don't care what's on Uncle Ben's rice. It's so low on our priorities. Okay, I'm now abdicating. I am no longer the emperor of black people. I've quit. 30 seconds I was. So that's what I mean by culture war. It is silly that we fight so much and actually matter. It does matter. That's wrong. I'm sorry. To that back. It does matter. It's just so low on the priorities of what's happening in our country. It's so low on the priorities of how we can fix people and make things better. There are so many things I'd jump on before I'd worry about all of those things. So I Thank you for the questions. I'll still answer them where I stand on them. I just don't think they're that important in my view. That's what I would say. So, all right. Let's see. Lily Larry had Trick a Z. Yes, right. I did. I had Trick a Z on. I did. And it is on YouTube. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Correct. Yes. All right. So why do you think we're bombing Syria again? It's so sad to me. Because we want to make sure that people know we're still in the game. We want to make sure that people know we're still in the bombing game. That was a message to everybody. We're back in the bombing game. We're not pulling back. We're not pulling anything out. We are back in the bombing game. And it worked perfectly. And people are like, okay, that's how that works. Good. I'm happy. Now we're back in the bombing game. Life is good. So, all right, guys. I want to say thank you so much for today. As always, please like, comment, and share. If you like what I'm doing, please head over to patreon.com/SharpeWay. Throw me $10 a month if you can. I love it. We need to. Always like, comment, and share. Head over, take the pandemic survey. It matters. It makes my sponsors happy. My sponsor is, one of them, is theadvocates.org. They really want you to take this survey, spread it around. It's about 5 minutes. Please do it and share it. It does matter. People really want that. I want it. Please do it. Let people know. What do you think about mask mandates? What do you think about vaccine mandates? What do you think about shutdowns? Let people know and let them see what your view is and what other people's views are. It does matter. Please go ahead and do it. This week, I have some very cool guests coming up. I have a guest tomorrow night and Wednesday night. I think you'll enjoy both of them. I will see you very soon.